Around 1,000 years ago, a group of people were trying to make a potion that would let humans live forever. They failed completely. What they made instead was a powder that has killed more people than almost anything else in human history. They were not weapon makers. They were not soldiers. They were searching for the secret to never dying, and they accidentally found one of the deadliest things our species has ever touched. This is the true story of gunpowder, and almost none of it happened the way people assume. It starts in ancient China more than 1,000 years ago with a group called the alchemists. An alchemist was something between a scientist, a doctor, and a magician. Their biggest obsession was finding what they called the elixir of life, a substance that could cure all disease, stop aging, and make a person immortal. Emperors paid enormous amounts of money to anyone who claimed they could brew it. So alchemists spent their entire lives mixing strange ingredients together, heating them, drying them, and testing them, hoping one combination would unlock eternal life. One of the ingredients they kept coming back to was a strange white substance called saltpeter. We know it today as potassium nitrate. It forms naturally as a crusty white powder on cave walls, on old stone, and in soil where waste breaks down over time. To an alchemist, it looked special. It behaved strangely when heated. It seemed to carry some hidden kind of energy, and in their search for the elixir of life, that made it exactly the kind of thing worth experimenting with. The deep irony of the whole story is right here. The substance they thought might hold the secret to living forever turned out to be the core ingredient in something built to end lives. They were closer to the truth than they realized, just pointed in the exact opposite direction. Here is what makes saltpeter so dangerous. To burn anything, you normally need oxygen from the air. That is why smothering a fire puts it out. You are cutting off its oxygen. But saltpeter is packed full of oxygen inside its own structure. When it gets hot enough, it releases that oxygen extremely fast, which means anything mixed with it can burn at a speed that is almost impossible otherwise. It carries its own air supply. A fire fed by saltpeter does not have to wait for oxygen from around it. It already has everything it needs to explode. The alchemists did not know any of this chemistry. They just knew that when they mixed saltpeter with certain other things, the results were violent and strange. And then, sometime around the year 850, someone mixed saltpeter with two other common ingredients: charcoal, which is almost pure carbon and burns easily, and sulfur, a yellow substance that lowers the temperature needed to set the whole mixture off. 3 ordinary ingredients: saltpeter, charcoal, sulfur. On their own, none of them is especially frightening. Together, in the right amounts, they became the first explosive in human history. The earliest written record of this is almost unbelievable. It appears in a Chinese alchemy text that actually warns readers not to make the mixture. The document describes alchemists who combined these ingredients and got burned, set fire to their workshops, and in some cases had the whole building burned down around them. The first time gunpowder appears in writing, it is not a recipe. It is a warning. People had discovered it by accident, gotten hurt, and someone wrote it down specifically to tell others to stop doing it. There is something very human in that. The first reaction to discovering gunpowder was not excitement about a weapon. It was someone saying, "Please, do not do what we just did." For a while, gunpowder was treated as a curiosity. It was loud, dangerous, and dramatic, which made it perfect for entertainment. Some of the earliest uses were in fireworks and festival displays, packed into bamboo tubes that would crack and bang. People also believed the loud noise could scare away evil spirits, so explosions became part of celebrations and ceremonies. For a brief period in history, one of the deadliest inventions ever made was mostly used to make pretty lights and frighten away things that did not exist. But it did not stay that way for long. It never does. By around the year 900, military minds had started to notice what gunpowder could really do. The early weapons were strange and clumsy. One of the first was something like a flamethrower, a tube that sprayed burning gunpowder mixture at enemies. Then came what were essentially the first bombs, packed with gunpowder and thrown or launched. Then someone realized that if you packed gunpowder into one end of a tube and a projectile into the other, the explosion could fire that projectile out at terrifying speed. That idea, packing an explosion behind an object to launch it, is the entire foundation of the gun and the cannon. Every firearm that has ever existed is a descendant of that single realization. The thing to notice is how fast it went from harmless to deadly once people understood the principle. A mistake found by people seeking immortality became fireworks, and fireworks became weapons in only a few generations. From China, the knowledge spread along trade routes, slowly at first, then everywhere. It reached the Middle East, where it was refined further, and then Europe, where it would change the shape of the entire world. Before gunpowder, the most powerful people in many societies were knights and warriors in heavy armor, protected behind thick stone castle walls. Armor and walls had been the ultimate defense for centuries. Gunpowder erased both. A cannon could knock down a castle wall that had stood for hundreds of years. A gun could punch through armor that no sword could touch, in the hands of someone with almost no training at all. A peasant with a firearm could kill a knight who had trained his whole life for battle. The entire structure of power, built on armor, walls, and elite warriors, came apart because of a powder discovered by people who were not even thinking about war. That is the strangest part of the whole story when you step back and look at it. Gunpowder was not invented to kill. It was stumbled upon by people chasing the dream of never dying. The same substance they hoped would let humans escape death became one of the main reasons death arrived faster and on a larger scale than ever before. They were looking for a way to hold on to life, and they handed the world a new way to take it. And it all came down to three ordinary things: white powder scraped off a cave wall, black charcoal from a fire, yellow sulfur from the ground. Three substances that had existed all along, sitting in the world unnoticed, until somebody mixed them together in the wrong proportions while reaching for something else entirely. The search for immortality gave us the explosion. The dream of living forever gave us the tool that ended more lives than almost any other. History is full of moments like this, where people reach for one thing and accidentally grab something completely different, something far bigger than they ever intended. Gunpowder might be the clearest example there has ever been. If you want more strange stories about the accidents that shaped our world, subscribe to Strange Sapiens.